What up guys, Ali here and welcome to Ali Talks Music. Add me on Instagram at Ali Talks Music as well. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now let's get into the video. In the early 2000s, Timbaland was making a lot of noise in the production world. However, not only was he producing music, his vocals were also present on a lot of his records. Around this time period, Timbaland teamed up with Magoo to release a classic club anthem called Drop. Now, before Magoo dropped his highly successful single, and before he became known to most of the public, he was fortunate to be amongst great company during his childhood. In the early 90s, Magoo was involved in a music group along with his friend Timbaland. The group also consisted of Larry Live and a then unknown artist called Pharrell. The group went under the moniker SBI, which stands for Surrounded by Idiots. Evidently, none of these artists had achieved their peak, as they went by different names at the time. Timbaland was known as DJ Timmy Tim, Pharrell went by the name Magnum, clearly a far cry from the legends they have become. Larry was the first person I met. He was from Virginia Beach initially and he ended up moving to where I went to high school in Chesapeake. Me and him hung for a while, and 3 months into me knowing him as a friend and having 2 classes together, he told me about a guy he knew from Virginia Beach who was this fantastic DJ. This was before I knew Tim as a producer. And dedicated to getting Magoo and Tim in the same vicinity, Larry took Magoo to Timbo's house, hoping the union would be fruitful. And it was. Magoo was instantly blown away by Timbaland's DJ skills and admired his work ethic. At the time, Timbaland had a reputation in his neighborhood to a point where people were using his name to sell tickets for parties he didn't even attend. He had popularity, however, aside from DJing, Timbo had a secret weapon in his arsenal: the ability to make dope beats. Then Tim let me hear his beats that he was making and I was like, he makes beats too? What else does he do? At that point, I had never met anybody in person that was serious about the art and that was that talented at the art. The trio then formed a working relationship. It was definitely a beautiful mix and match of different vibes, ideas, and sounds. However, something was still missing. That thought led Timbaland to an epiphany and discovered that the group was missing a specific sound, more specifically his cousin, Pharrell Williams. The only problem was Pharrell was involved in another group, however he still expressed interest in working with Timbaland and the gang. One day Tim was like, I know this dude named Pharrell. He's on another level, but he's in another group. They then formed a working relationship. SBI put out a demo tape around the early 90s, however nothing much came of it because the group eventually broke up. At the time, Missy was involved in an R&B group called Phase Z, a group that would later change its name to Sister. After hearing Missy's group on the radio, Magoo was hyped to work with the girls. After that, it wasn't long before Missy and Timbo were making music together. Knowing what she wanted, Missy had a chance to audition for Jodeci member Devontae Swing, who signed them to his Swing Mob label.
Plenty of styles, plenty of styles, plenty of styles, plenty of styles.
The label boasted heavy talent such as Timbaland, Magoo, Genuine Player, and Sweet. However, this union didn't last long as the label folded around 1995. Without a label to work with, Missy and Timbaland wrote for other artists and were part of the post-swing mob collective known as The Basement. During this time period, Magoo appeared on the Gin and Juice remix and Genuine's G-Thing. With the help of Elliott, Timbaland and Magoo got signed to Blackground Records. Timbaland also got a chance to work with Elliott, producing most of her 1 in a Million album. From that moment on, Timbaland's sound was solidified in hip-hop and R&B. He also worked on Genuine's debut album, Genuine The Bachelor, further establishing himself as one of the go-to producers of that era. Interestingly enough, Magoo also got to write a few tracks on that album. Elliott was a funny and good-spirited type person. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have been on Blackground. She spoke up for Tim and me and Barry ended up signing us. Of course, he had a lot of respect for Baby Girl and I'm sure Barry would have worked with Timbaland as a producer anyway. Aaliyah vouched for us and I never forgot that. After working on Aaliyah's album, Timbo brushed off his production resume by working on Missy's. The project was called Super Duper Fly. After that, it was Magoo's turn to shine. Over the years, Magoo has seemingly disappeared off the map. He's not putting out a lot of music, so the question is, what happened to Magoo? In the late 90s, Timbaland and Magoo released their debut album called Welcome to Our World. The album wasn't a huge commercial success from the get-go, coming in at number 33 on the Billboard 200. However, it eventually went platinum over time. During this time period, Timbaland's sound was taking over the game, contributing to a large number of hits that came out, ones that he had no shortage of. Timbaland produced Welcome to Our World and was clearly the mastermind behind the album's biggest hit, Up Jumps the Boogie. A song that features the late Elliott and rap legend Missy Elliott. The song peaked at number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100, achieving gold status in the US. Side note, Jay-Z's Big Pimpin' beat was supposed to appear on Timbaland and Magoo's project. I personally cannot imagine Big Pimpin' without Jay-Z on it, so I'm glad that Jay-Z did his thing on the beat and not Magoo and Timbaland. Overall, the album is pretty solid in my opinion. The beats are undeniably good and futuristic for that time. If you ask me, almost every track is designed to make your head nod. As mentioned earlier, the album did go platinum. However, it did come out around 1997, a time when going platinum was the norm. Around 1998, Magoo helped to write Missy's Beep Me 911 and appeared on Players' Cheers to You album. In the early 2000s, Timbaland and Magoo were ready to strike again and released their second album called Indecent Proposal, an album that derives its name from a movie. The album peaked at number 29 on the Billboard 200 and didn't sell as much as the first project. In fact, the album failed to even go gold. The project spawned the singles All Y'all and the ever so popular Drop. Before the album dropped, it experienced multiple delays and was turned into the label about a year and a half before its release. I turned the album in a year and a half ago, and it's just now coming out. And now we're in a recession. It doesn't make sense. According to Timbaland, his label was changing homes, creating a strain on his work. It wasn't a matter of us not wanting to go back into the studio. Our label was leaving Atlantic at the time, and it took a while for them to do that. When the album came out, it was a blessing for Timbaland and Magoo, especially considering their long wait time for the project's release. However, did it meet expectations? The simple answer is, it flopped. This downturn didn't stop Timbaland and Magoo from making another attempt. In the early 2000s, Timbaland and Magoo released their third album, Under Construction Part 2. The album debuted at number 50 on the Billboard 200 and sold less units than its predecessor. The album produced 3 singles, namely Cop That Shit,
DJs in the mix shows you better go to the record store and cop that shit.
Indian Flute,
I got my eyes on you. Baby, let me tell you that you are the truth.
and the promotional single Naughty Eye.
Look at that naughty eye. You give me that naughty eye.
Sadly, Cop That Shit was the only single to make it to the Billboard Hot 100. I won't lie, Indian Flute used to be my jam. The Indian sample over Timbo's drums just worked. However, despite the song's club appeal, it didn't do what it was supposed to do, only making it to number 73 on the Hot R&B Hip Hop Songs chart. Under Construction Part 2 was the last album that the duo put out. Performance-wise, the album was a significant detour from their first attempt, with some fans even calling it a flop, which it was. Now, in the late 90s, Timbaland released his very first LP called Tim's Bio, Live from the Basement. The album came in at number 50 on the Billboard 200 and was a decent entry considering the album consisted of old songs. Magoo appeared on What You're Talking About, featuring Little Man and Static. He also appeared on Here We Come with Missy Elliott. Now, I won't lie, I laughed out loud when I discovered that TK Kirkland was on this project. The man has truly been present in every major event in music history. After his first attempt at his studio album, Timbaland took a few years to release his sophomore album, but it was certainly worth the wait. Around 2007, Timbaland released his highly successful Shock Value. The album debuted at number 5 on the US Billboard 200 with 138,000 copies sold in the first week. The album has sold more than 2 million copies in the US alone to date. The project had quite a number of memorable features. Justin Timberlake, Elton John, 50 Cent, and Magoo also made an appearance on the song called Board Meeting. After this, Timbaland released his third studio album, Shock Value 2. Interestingly enough, Magoo was nowhere to be found on this project. Around 2013, Magoo made an appearance on Missy's new single at the time, Warped.
Timbaland Thursdays. It's blowing up. I told you it's blowing up. Showing you that me and Missy ain't never going nowhere. We ain't never going nowhere. We here to stay. Thursday is so popular. I think it's about to be so big for the music industry because it's so fun. I'm doing stuff that unorthodox. That's what I do originally. Since y'all like Thursday so much, this Thursday, the first kickoff, let me go and drop another me and Missy joint. Here's another Tim and Missy exclusive. Shock value, baby. You know there's gonna be a monster here.
I'm trying to make you my favorite girl. All I'm trying to do is get to know you bad. And I know you don't need help, but I'm trying to be alright.
Now, one major critique that Magoo faced was his inability to stand on his own. Unlike most of the people he came up with, like Missy, Genuine, and Pharrell, he became known as the guy standing next to Timbaland, which if you think about it was a good place to be for monetary purposes. Timbaland was hot, and in the process that made Magoo hot, further adding more money to Magoo's bank account. However, this didn't help the public perception, which was Magoo cannot exist without Timbaland. And not only was he seen as the guy standing next to Timbaland, he also failed to release a solo album, mainly because people weren't checking for it back then, and that made him an artist that didn't show his worth to the public. Now, even though Magoo put out a lot of memorable songs with Timbaland, a lot of people thought that his bars were questionable, with some of his audience believing that he had none to begin with. Now, after listening to Love You, a song which features a Magoo verse, a Twitter user went online and unleashed their feelings, opinions of Magoo and his lyrical ability. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the worst rapper to ever exist. Despite having connections and appearing on some of the hottest songs, there are a lot of people that clearly think that Magoo is not skilled on the mic. A viewer on my poll said, Magoo? He's a talented rapper, however he was voted the worst rapper on a poll a year or two ago. Interesting. Blue Eyes says, Magoo top 5 worst along with Silk Dashaka and Little Pump. Now, despite having a lot of haters, there are some people that defend Magoo, with one Twitter user even saying, there are too many mumble rap niggas out to be dissing Magoo like this. Up jumps the boogie is more important than your life. I personally don't think Magoo is whack. If we compare him to artists of nowadays, he has some form of skill. However, if we compare him to the artists that came out during his time period, his skills were mid, making him look subpar amongst more talented musicians. Magoo was clearly not the type of rapper that made you rewind his verse to hear what he said. However, he did have something to offer the music climate back then, a different sound, mainly masterminded by Timbaland. At the end of the day, Magoo had an interesting career. It didn't necessarily last very long, but he did his thing while he was here and got out. However, whether he got out by choice or not is another story. Magoo seems to be an extremely private person and seemed to shy away from social media. From the sound of things, Magoo went behind the scenes a little bit to work on his production company. However, it doesn't seem to be very active as of late. I don't want to talk about what I'm doing now. I'm in the business, but I don't want people to know what I'm doing. I used to have a production company and they worked with Madonna and Justin Timberlake. I did that after Timbaland and Magoo. I signed a few producers and they did very well. According to Timbaland, Magoo is involved in real estate, benefiting from passive income. He did try his hand at talent management around 2010, but that career endeavor doesn't seem to be around today. In essence, not every entertainer has the ability to maintain a public presence. Some take refuge in their privacy, knowing that when tomorrow comes they have to entertain once again because the public will anxiously be awaiting their next move. Timbaland and Magoo get about 90k monthly listeners on Spotify, and their most popular songs on the platform are Drop, People Like Myself, All Y'all, John Blaze, and Party People. Magoo also has a solo Spotify account which gets about 45k monthly listeners. The most popular songs there are Drop, Love to Love You, Joy, Beep Beep, and Be a Star Tonight.
It just was all a blur, man. All of that stuff, the video shoots, the flying to this city and flying to that city. So I never got a chance to really drink and digest none of the success.
Right.
I feel to this day, man, like I can tell somebody real quick, yeah, we sold 1.6 million initial. That was our initial sales on the first album. I had a platinum single too. There are people that go their whole careers and never have half of that or 25% of that success on a single album or a single that's platinum. And I was blessed to have it, but I never got a chance to enjoy it. I didn't. I'm going to just be honest. Some people would try to make up something. I'm going to keep it real, man. I didn't enjoy any of it.
This week's post notification shoutouts go to Doogie54, Princess Pen the Writer, and Sierra Pollard. That's it for me, man. It's your boy Ali. What happened to Magoo in your opinion? let me know down below. Video requests, let me know down below as well. Also add me on Instagram at Elliott Talks Music. New What Happened To video dropping next week. Till next time. Peace.